All right, let's get started. We might have some people coming in as we begin, but it's 4 o'clock now. So good afternoon all. Welcome to today's event about career pathways with a political science degree. I'm not the guest speaker. I'm Jason Arnold. I'm the chair of the department. Very quickly, you might have noticed that we're making a lot of investments in the department in all sorts of activities and programs related to career readiness and experiential learning, and there's a lot more to come. Today's event is one piece of that larger initiative. So in addition to today's event, we're planning to bring more career-oriented content and skills into the curriculum. We're going to connect more of our students with organizations and people out there in the workforce through our own partnerships, through our alumni network, which is big and one day you'll probably be a part of, and through something that's forthcoming starting next fall, which is, you might have heard about this, that we're creating an Institute for Democracy, Pluralism, and Community Empowerment. And so there will be loads of opportunities for students through the Institute, including those related to career readiness and experiential learning. So keep your eyes posted about that. There's going to be more information to come. Today we are fortunate to have as our guest Melinda Snyder, who is the Assistant Director of Career Services. Melinda has tremendous expertise in this area. She has a specialty in the areas of public service and the nonprofit sector in terms of careers. So this obviously makes her very well suited to talk about this today and help students think about their options and how to get there. But her expertise goes beyond those two areas. Before her work at Career Services, Melinda was an academic advisor in the business school, as a recruiter for a consulting firm focusing on healthcare organizations at a different organization, as a resume consultant, and an account manager for a firm that connected people with jobs. So she's got loads of experience, and including her presentation, she'll be available to answer your questions. All of it makes Melinda a perfect guest speaker for our event today, What Can You Do with a Political Science Degree? Not the same title here, but it's close. But please welcome Melinda Snyder.
Thank you very much. So as Dr. Arnold said, I'm Melinda Snyder, and I'm an Assistant Director in VCU Career Services, and I'm thrilled to talk with you all today. In our office, we have industry liaisons and then academic liaisons. So industry liaisons are, as Dr. Arnold mentioned, public service and nonprofit, and then political science is one of my major liaisons as well. How many of you in here are seniors? Juniors? Sophomores? Any first-year students? Awesome. Okay, great. We've got kind of a cross-section. So this will be kind of thinking about what you're going to do after graduation. Is a lot of what we're going to talk about. What can you do with a political science major? What are their different options? And how to do some exploration if you're not sure. So we'll talk about that today. How many of you have met with someone in career services? All right. Okay, a couple people. So if you have not met with us at all, we are here for a variety of reasons. One, we can talk about your career interests and do some exploration. So if you're thinking, I don't know what I want to do with a political science major, I'll touch on some topics today, and then we can have a more in-depth conversation in our office as well. And we also talk a lot about networking and managing professional relationships, and we're going to start that conversation today, because yes, this sounds hard, but it also is really rewarding, and it can be easier than you think. Talk about resources for looking for opportunities like internships, jobs, and then a lot of what we do in our office is translating and articulating skills and experience onto your search documents, so onto your resumes, onto your cover letters, into your interviews. So it's something we absolutely can help with in our office. And then if you're thinking about next steps, if you're thinking about graduate school or shorter long-term career goals, we can have conversations around that as well. So I know you're kind of in a variety of different places in your career education journey right now. How many of you right now are thinking after undergrad you might go to graduate school? How many thinking you're going to work? Anyone thinking other, like I want to travel, I'm going to do something different? I was like, what are you going to do? Because I want to do that too. That always sounds like an awesome option. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about some of these options and kind of preparation for them. If you're thinking about graduate school, I always encourage students to think about what is your goal. So if you're going to graduate school, what is my plan for it? The one thing I sometimes see happen is students are like, and we've all done this, we've gone to school through K through 12 and then college, so 16 years of school. And so school seems like it feels comfortable, it's the next thing to do because I don't know what else to do. So let's talk about what that plan will look like and what your goals are for graduate school. What makes you want to go? What is that purpose? What are you going to study specifically? And what would you do afterward? And that's a really big part. What is that end career goal? And let's back into that graduate program to make sure it's going to fit your goals. Because what we don't want is like, I don't know what else to do, so I'm just going to pursue this extra degree. Like, let's figure out what your goals are and then figure out the graduate school that's right for you. Because grad school is awesome. It's a great opportunity and I encourage everyone to do it. I want to make sure that it's going to meet those goals that you have for your career. And then what do you need? Do you need the degree to do what you want to? So I'll talk to some people who are like, well, I want to work in policy. I'm thinking I might go to law school, or I might go get my master's of public administration. And you might be able to work in policy with either of those options, or have people who do social work and do the macro option in that. So there are lots of different paths oftentimes to the same end career goal too, so we can talk through that as well. Another thing when thinking about grad school is what is the cost? One is tuition, and financial aid looks much different at the graduate level than it does at the undergraduate level. So kind of the grant-based scholarships are typically not there, but there is still aid available. What's the option for housing? Where am I going to live? I'm not going to make money during that time, so that's a potential financial implication. Am I going to take out loans for this? Am I going to work? Are there assistantships and funding? This is something I encourage everyone to think about. If you're going to graduate school, I went to graduate school and did not know about this. Oftentimes there are, depending on the role, sometimes graduate assistants available so that you are working and you get either tuition stipend or tuition funding or stipend, additional money for that. So if you're thinking about programs, ask, what are those options? And if I work for it first, is there any option for tuition assistance? That's one huge benefit of working for VCU is we get to take classes for free. Some companies or organizations will also offer tuition remission or tuition assistance. Oftentimes this is on a part-time basis, so they'll cover like a class or 2 classes a semester. Sometimes that comes with you have to have certain grades to get them covered, but it's something to think about. Because ultimately, if you're taking out loans and you've taken them out for undergrad, you've got interest and those fees to pay back, so we just want to be thoughtful around this and think about what these are going to look like. So I encourage students, and anyone thinking about grad school, create a pros and cons list. Thinking about how you're going to be able to cover those costs and what you're looking at. Also thinking about the pros and cons of working. And sometimes what I hear from students is like, I'm afraid if I take a break, I'm never going to go back. And what I will say is, I'm speaking from my own experience, not everyone has the same, is that if you truly want to do it, you will go back. I sat in my first graduate course at 30, with my birthday actually, and that's where I sat in my first graduate level course. So like, if you really want to do it, you typically will. With that said, sometimes life does happen and it gets harder, but this idea that if we take a break, it's going to be really, really hard, like I'm not going to remember how to do school, like you can pick that up and there's usually policies in place for that too. So just something to think about. Like I said, graduate school can be a great option. I just like for current students to think about what is that goal and making sure that the program that you choose will help fit that end goal. So that's kind of graduate school. Switching gears a little bit is the working side of it. So that's what we're going to spend the majority of our time talking about today is kind of where, like the work side of it. And what I'd like for you to do is spend a moment thinking about some of the skills that you've developed as a political science major and during your time at VCU. I'm going to give you one example here and then I'd like to take some suggestions from you all. So one I would say is written communication. Do you all agree that you've done some writing in your major at VCU? Okay. What other skills have you developed while you've been at VCU or through your major? What else would you say?
Public speaking.
Public speaking, yes, thank you. I think it's in there somewhere, yeah. Public speaking, yep. What else? That's all one of mine. That oral communication, yes. What else? What other skills have you developed? Have you done any group projects in any classes? Yeah? Some of that collaboration or teamwork maybe? Yeah. What else have you developed? Thinking both through political science and kind of the lens that you're studying through political science? Do something again?
Sort of drawing connections between abstract ideas, but still trying to demonstrate that there are similarities.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of that points of comparison and those connections, awesome, great, yes. What else have you developed, you think? And you can think broadly about your time at VCU too, if you want to expand out. Like, If you've been involved in student organizations or other part-time work. What else have you developed?
What about like social justice type things?
Yes, thank you. I think that's one that we often forget about. The social justice, the equity, the diversity component is very ingrained in VCU, and we take it for granted sometimes because it's so present at VCU, and it's not the case for other institutions sometimes. So it's really a strength that a lot of VCU students have developed. Other strengths that you think you have? Yes.
Time management.
Time management, yes, yes. How many of you are working like some kind of part-time job while you're going to school? And taking classes, and trying to pay rent, and doing all of these things? Absolutely time management, yes. What else? I put leadership on here, I think both from your times in your own experiences and then from studying too. Like you're looking at government, that's gonna have a component of leadership in it. So thinking about that. I also put that cross-cultural knowledge, which kind of gets to that social justice piece at times, and looking at different, I think especially for political science, that cross-cultural knowledge can be really valuable. So I encourage you to do some reflection on what you've developed and the skill sets that you've developed while you've been here. And while you're doing that, the other side of this is what are employers looking for? But you ultimately want to develop the skill sets that are going to be important for employers. There are career readiness competencies that have been developed by an organization called NACE, and NACE is the National Association of Colleges and Employers. There are 8 competencies that they've developed, and it comes together from talking to recruiters and employers, and then career services professionals at universities. So the goal of NACE is to bring us all together so that we are preparing the students who are graduating for the workforce and what employers are looking for. And so each of these is defined on this page, which is a lot of text, and I understand that. And we're actually going to do a little bit of an activity around this too. So I'd like for you to take a moment to read through these as I'm passing this out. Passing them. Because what I want you to do is you're going to take one competency from this list, and you're going to reflect on how you've worked on developing this competency while you've been in school. And you're going to get with a partner and share this too. So these competencies are all listed out here. So see. Let's do both lists of that video. Whoops. Okay. So what we're going to do is I'm going to give you 2 minutes to kind of read through this and do a little reflection on your own of what competency you want to choose. And I want you to give some specifics around this. So I want you not to say like, oh yeah, I did a lot of group work, I had collaboration. I want you to think of a very specific example. So on this particular project, I was the leader and I delegated these tasks. Because you're going to have 1 minute to 1.5 minutes to describe this competency to the partner that you work with. So 2 minutes to look through this and reflect on what competency you're going to pick. After your 2 minutes, I'm going to have you find a partner. You're each going to share for about 1.5 minutes. Any questions on the activity? Okay, so 2 minutes to kind of read through this and reflect, and then I'll let you know when it's time to find a partner. Okay, so everyone can find someone to share with. What you're gonna do is you're gonna share which competency you selected and give the specific example of how you developed that competency. I'm gonna give you a minute and a half for the first person to talk, and then I'll let you know when that's up, and then a minute and a half for the second person to talk. So, if everyone find a partner. Okay, and go ahead and get started. If there needs to be 3, that's fine too.
So this is the new one. Yeah. No, it's mine. Okay.
So I know there was some hashtag.
So with object. Yeah. And
Okay, if you have not already, switch partners, and the second person gets a minute and a half to talk about their competency.
Yeah, there are a wide range of prices, but yeah, we would make sure.
yeah. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Like,
Really slow. I don't speak.
that'd be good.
Going out for drinks.
Okay, let's wrap up those conversations. Thank you all for participating. Sometimes people reluctantly do that, so I appreciate your participation. It's always good. Is anyone willing to share the competency they thought about and kind of the example that they came up with?
So, competency for the inclusion equity thing, I'm actually working on a project for the disability partnership here, where I'm actually editing one of the modules for that under the School of Education.
Very cool.
So,
Yes, that's a great example. Absolutely, yes. Anyone else have an example they want to share? Can I call on, you had mentioned the connection piece. Do you think that gets at critical thinking in this example?
Well, mine was specifically about my personal experience because I actually returned to school after an 8-year gap. Fall 2022 was my first semester back. I wasn't expecting to like my constitutional law class or the 12-page term paper at the end. but it was something where you had to think about legal concepts, previous court cases, and try to find a way to make a specific argument that you get to choose based on the literature that you have to go back to of here is this precedent, and here's this next one that came after that that upheld the previous one, and here's the sort of abstract ways that my thing overlaps with that, and here's why you should agree with my idea.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think anytime you get kind of a project that's a little bit more ambiguous, you're not given a very clear, like you have to do this, you get to choose and have to back it up with your data, and I think any kind of research you've done, that oftentimes gets into critical thinking and how to solve complex problems, which is always really good, and sounds like a lot of written communication with a 12-page term paper in that one too.
A little bit.
Yeah, okay, great. So I think as you're going through your time at school, if you are graduating, or even if you have, if you're a sophomore or junior here, think about how you're developing these competencies and reflect on that a little bit, because these are the things that employers tell us that they're looking for. The other reason that I asked, I gave you 1 minute and 30 seconds to do this. How many of you felt like this was too much time to talk about this? Anyone felt like it was too short? No one has any. Did you fill the 1 minute and 30 seconds? Or some people switched early, which is okay, like there's no right or wrong, I'm just curious. Some people switch early. The reason why I gave you that much time is that generally for an interview question, you want to keep it 2 minutes or under. So that's kind of just the barometer of that. So that's why I gave you 1 minute and 30 to see like how long did you talk about the specific topic, to see how comfortable that felt for you. So just kind of an added thing that I threw in there too. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about the skills and the competencies that you're developing. Let's say you're like, okay, I have these skills and I know I'm working on them, but like I have no idea what I want to do. I love political science, it's really interesting to me, but like what do I do with this? So let's talk a little bit about that. We have a number of career exploration resources on our website. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of these. In addition, you're always welcome to schedule follow-up conversations with our office too. A couple of the tools that I'm going to post here, and I have sign-in sheets on either side here, and I'll try to send these slides out via email to everyone, so if you can make sure you sign in, you'll get the copy of the slides so you have these direct links. The career exploration tools that are on this page, our office pays for subscriptions, or the VCU library pays for a subscription, so you want to access them from our website. If you Google for them, you'll be prompted to pay for them, and I certainly don't want you to do that because we're already doing that. So a couple of different tools. One is called What Can I Do with This Major? Who's heard of this one? This is a focus a lot in academic advising, uses this a lot, and we certainly use it in our office too. It was developed by a different university, but they do have a lot of the same majors as VCU in here. I usually come to view all majors, and you can find them. Because it's not a university-specific tool, you will see some majors that are not at VCU, but political science is certainly in here. It's often called political science and government. And so it will tell you the different areas where you might consider working, and then what I really like is the strategies to get involved. So if you're thinking state or local government, how can you get involved in doing those things? Doing research on them, looking for internships. Can I think about doing something like the capital semester program? The different ways to get involved. If you're thinking federal government, how to do that, and strategies there. Law, thinking about involvement there. Politics, can you volunteer for a campaign? International affairs, and thinking about that. Business, you can work in business with almost any major, so that's something if you have an interest in it, getting that internship or experience can be really valuable. Thinking about the analytical skills, again, the verbal, the writing, the communication, the leadership that you're already developing with your major. Nonprofit opportunities, can you get experience with volunteering or doing an internship for a nonprofit? Media, that writing experience, how could you apply that potentially? Education and where you might teach, and then there's general information. They also have professional associations to look at, employment opportunities and job boards, and some other related resources here. So this is a good starting point if you're like, what are some of the different options? The other tool that we have on this page is called Candid Career. And if you're someone who likes videos, there's an online library of people talking a little bit about their opportunities, which is really nice. And you can search if you want by college major. So we could look for political science. And it will have different job titles and the degree that someone completed for it. And I think once you click on one of these, then you get access to all of the majors that were political science. So this can also be an interesting way to kind of brainstorm potential things that you can do with political science. One thing that you will see is there's a broad variety. The benefit of a degree like political science is that it's preparing with a lot of different skills, those writing skills, those critical thinking skills. So sometimes it's a little bit challenging because there's not one right path, but there's lots of different options that you can do. And so the goal is how can I develop some experiences so that I'm qualified for those opportunities upon graduation. And we're going to talk about that with some of those search opportunities in just a moment too. But this is great if you want to watch like a short video on any of these type of roles that are in here. The other component that I really like is that you can see what people from VCU who have graduated political science majors are doing by looking at the alumni search on LinkedIn. How many of you have a LinkedIn profile? A couple people. So people are oftentimes like, yeah, I hear about LinkedIn. Do I need to do it? Should I do it? And my thoughts are LinkedIn is really great for kind of developing connections. So as you start building relationships with your peers, with your instructors, with speakers that are coming into your classes and other events, with your work, if you're doing part-time work or internships, even just your part-time jobs, you can start connecting to them on LinkedIn. So as people move positions, you can follow where they're going, and those connections can be really valuable. In addition, I really like the alumni search in LinkedIn. So if you log into LinkedIn and you search for VCU's page, you can come to the alumni area. And there's over 155,000 alumni in here. And you can click through and you can look at what they studied. So I can put in political science, if I can spell it correctly. And there's over 4,000 alumni in here. And so I can come down and say like, okay, what are some of these people doing? Like I'm really curious about this person's working in diversity and inclusion management, like that's something I'm interested in. So like let me come back and see like where have they been working, what have they been doing, and what are their degrees. So it looks like they did their bachelor's degree in political science and then ended up getting their MPA, but it looks like they were working right out of their bachelor's degree for a little bit and kind of following that career path. So it can be a way to do some research, like what do people with this major do by kind of doing a little online digging here. The other thing you can do is like, let's say like, I think I actually want to work in a corporate job. There's 61 people that work for Capital One. Like, what are they doing with that political science degree? Like, let's go back through and check out some of these people. So you can click on their name and also read in here, like, what are their backgrounds? So someone who did the bachelor's degree, and it looks like did a bachelor's degree at William & Mary and then got their master's degree. Let's see, I knew I looked at some. It's just kind of an interesting, I think, exercise to go back through and see like what are people doing with these backgrounds. And I'm going to talk in a moment that if you find someone who's doing a job, you're like, that sounds really cool. Like, this is definitely something I'm interested in doing. How you might reach out to them to learn a little bit more about that position. I'm going to talk about that in just a moment. So, as I said, you can search by what people have studied, where they work, where they live. There's really a lot of filters in here, and this is a way to kind of just brainstorm, like, what are people doing? Any questions about any of these career exploration tools? Yes?
Can you filter as in where they work?
Yes.
Especially in different countries as well.
Oh, the location. Yes, you can. Where they live. Right here. So this will always default to the most popular option. So like Virginia comes up and then Greater Richmond, but you can always add in additional locations here. So if you're like, I want to move to Chicago, you can put that in here. Same thing for an employer. Like if there's a very specific employer that you want to try to work for, you can put that in here and see if anyone's worked there. Like let's say I'm curious about the Brookings Institute. You can see like, has anyone been there? Sometimes I get too small, like we could take off, we got one alumni who doesn't have political science, but you can kind of do that too. Other questions around these career exploration resources? So next thing I want to talk about is like, okay, we've talked about career exploration, now you're like, well, okay, I need to find a job. Like how do I find either an internship or a job that I'm thinking about? And the question I get most often is like, where are the job boards? Like where can I sit at my desk and like submit my resumes? And when I graduated, this is kind of what I wanted to do too. Like it's what you, like, we're really good at researching as students. Like I want to do this research and I'm going to hit my, submit my applications. So applying online on online job boards should be one tactic that you're using if you're looking for an internship or a full-time job. I'm going to show you some of these obvious search resources, and these are the job boards that exist, and we'll talk through them, and then I'm going to talk to you about the other side of the job search process, which can sometimes be even more fruitful. So Handshake, how many of you have been into Handshake? Okay, so most of you, sounds like we know what this is. This is going to be the online portal. If an employer contacts our office and says they want to hire a VCU student, we're going to direct them to post that opportunity in Handshake. For equity purposes, our office doesn't keep separate lists for employers or internships or anything like that because we want opportunities to be proposed to all students and have any student be available to apply to it. So if it's our office, they will have to post the opportunity in Handshake. You can come through and you can look in the jobs area, and there's a number of different filters in here. You can change by location. And the one thing that's beneficial about Handshake is that employers can post to multiple institutions and multiple colleges at once. So it's easier for them to post across institutions. So you might find locations that are pretty broad. They have a remote filter right now, and you can even search for full-time jobs or internships. The order that your jobs are presented in are based on what you filled out in your profile. So I would also check out your profile information and your career interests specifically and make sure that those are appropriate for you because that will shape the order of the jobs. I will sometimes hear from students, well, I looked at it once and there was nothing in there, so I never went back. Jobs come up and down all of the time in Handshake, so it's important that you're going in regularly. You can also set up search and then set up your search criteria and create like a save search and come back to it, but it is something that you want to continually check. Right now, February is the prime time often for summer internships. So if you're thinking about a summer internship, you should be looking now for those opportunities. Some places will hire earlier, some places will hire later, but February is a great time for that. If you're looking for jobs after graduation, we usually say it takes about 2 to 3 months to find an opportunity once you start searching. So you're like March is probably about the right time to start looking. Some employers will not look at people until they have their degree in hand. So I say you can start earlier, but some people may not consider you. So really focus like close to that graduation date and sometimes reapply to opportunities after you've graduated as well, in case they won't consider you until you have that degree. But Handshake is one place that you should be looking for opportunities. It does take employers an extra step to post a Handshake. So if I'm a large employer, if I'm the FBI's of the world, if I am the state of Virginia, I'm getting tons of applications on my own website, so I'm probably not going to post a Handshake because it takes me an extra step to do that. So if there are employers that you really want to work for, my recommendation is start a Google Sheet or a spreadsheet where you list that employer's name and their careers page, and you're going out to check that regularly. Some of the really large employers will even let you set up an alert so that you get notified when a new job gets posted. That's even better. But if they don't, like I would make this like I'm going to check once a week and get in there and check all of my things on my spreadsheet to make sure. We have a number of other public service opportunities in here. If you're thinking about the government, federal jobs are often posted on USA Jobs. We have some of those other public service pathways on here as well. Another website that I really like is idealist.org. Has anyone heard of Idealist? This is going to be a nonprofit job board. It's not great for small cities, so there's not a huge presence in Richmond, but it's really good if you're looking at like DC especially, Northern Virginia, New York, things like that. I always just get past this first search page because once you get to the second page, we're going to change this to Washington, DC, they have a lot of really good filters on here, which I like. So you can search by issue area. So if there's an issue that you're really passionate about or that's really important to you, which oftentimes will go hand in hand with policy, you can look for that particular issue. You can look for policy in itself. They have all sorts of different options. And they also have an experience level, so you can put an entry level here so you're not looking at the jobs that require 10 years of experience. And they have a remote filter, which is really nice. So like let's say, okay, I want to get an internship and I want to turn on that remote filter. There's over 1,000 opportunities in here right now. All of these opportunities are paid in some way. Some of them are stipends, which can be small or large. You never know with a stipend, but these are all usually paid opportunities. Sometimes there's a misconception that you can't get paid any money in the nonprofit world, but I think it's also depends on the organization that you work for. The larger organizations tend to be more competitive with salary, and it's something to look at. It's great to get some entry-level experience too. So Idealist is another, if you're interested in those job boards, is another really good resource to check out. Connect VA is going to be more local to the Richmond area. And then we have on our website other search tools as well that you can check out too. So this is good. I would encourage you to use the job application and the job boards as an approach for your job search or internship process. However, 70 to 80% of positions are never posted anywhere online. And that's tough. Like, how do I find those positions then? And even if it's a government position, typically they have to be posted, but the timelines that they go up and stay online can be really flexible. So they may only get posted for a short amount of time. So this networking component of the job function and the job search process is really important. I'm an introvert, so the idea of networking sounds pretty terrible to me. However, if you reframe this, it's really about making connections. And if you're trying to just make a connection and get to know someone and learn from them, that can be a good way to think about this concept of networking, I think. Because generally when I talk to people, they want to help and they want to have conversations with people. So if you're not just like, help me find this job, but like help me learn about your career path and learn from you, that can be a really good way to get into start this conversation. So let me talk about that. If you know someone already, like if it's a family friend, I think you can be a little bit more like blunt with this and be like, yeah, I'm getting close to graduation, I'm looking for work. Do you have any suggestions? Like, is your employer hiring? Like, if you already know someone, you can be more direct with those questions. But if you don't know someone, how do I do this? And my recommendation is to try and make the connection with someone through what's called an informational interview. Has anyone ever done an informational interview? This is where you ask someone about their career path. So as Dr. Arnold mentioned, I worked in some corporate jobs before I transitioned into higher education. To leave my corporate job and go back to get my master's degree was a big decision, and I needed to figure out, is this the right move for me? And so I talked to people who were working in the field to ask them, like, what's your day like? Do you feel like there's a lot of bureaucracy and red tape in higher education? Can you get things done? And I learned from that process, it really depends on the team. So when you go to interview for a job, think about that team and who's going to be there. This institution, it can really vary. Like VCU, I think is great because they're open to trying a lot of new things. And so having conversations with people who are in the field really helps for us to figure out, is this something that I might like doing? And so some tips for trying to find these people. If you don't have your own connections, how might you find some people? One of the things that you can do is use LinkedIn to do this. So we talked about kind of finding these people that we might talk to. Let's put political science back in here. So let's look at this, the diversity and equity and inclusion management person. Let's say I read their background, like this sounds really cool. I'd really like to know how they moved from their degree in political science into the field that they're doing. Depending on the person, some people will let you message them right away. This all depends on someone's settings. And if they don't let you message them right away, then what you would do is you'd ask to have a connection with them. So here this person doesn't let you message, but they ask to connect. So what you would do is if you find someone you want to talk to, I'm going to use someone I know, you hit the connect button. And when you add the connect button, you want to add a note. And this could be something like, I'm a current VCU student, I majored in political science, I see you majored in it as well. I'm really interested in learning a little bit about your career path. Would you be willing to have a conversation with me? We gotta get this into 300 characters. With that, you can shorten that down. Once they accept your connection request, then you can message much longer back and forth. I would encourage you, if you're sending a connection request to someone you do not know at all, that you put some kind of note in here. Because I'm unlikely to accept a blind request, but if someone says, hey, I came to your presentation the other day, like we can connect, like then I'll certainly accept that. So what you would do is you'd ask for that connection. And we have, once they've accepted that, you can reach out and write something longer. We have some sample communication in here, what you might say. One thing that feels awkward but can be really valuable is to provide some availability when you are available. And that feels weird because you want to make yourself like whatever's convenient for you. But if someone asks me for a conversation, they tell me when they're available, I can look at my calendar really quickly and be like, oh yeah, next Tuesday at 3, that's great for me. Or I can't do this Tuesday, I can do the following Tuesday at 3. And I'm more likely to respond right away. If you tell me I can be available whenever you want, then I have to look at my calendar, I have to try and block off time so that a student doesn't schedule in that, and kind of think about what my schedule looks like. And I'm more likely to be like, yeah, I'll come back to that email, and I don't respond. And then sometimes it just gets pushed further and further down that to-do list. So the easier you can make it for someone to say yes to your request, the more likely you are to get a response. So that's why we suggest providing some availability to me. We have some sample questions. Your career path sounds interesting. How did you get started? What advice might you have for someone getting started? And so you're asking them not for a job, but you're asking them to learn a little bit about them and their career path. If you think about it, if someone from your high school contacted you and said, hey, like I'm thinking about going to VCU, would you be willing to talk to me about your experience at VCU? What would your response be? Yeah, like people genuinely want to help, and people like talking about themselves. So usually people are likely to say yes to these kind of requests, and it's just a much easier ask than, hey, can you help me find a job, or hey, can I shadow you? Because I think shadowing can also be a really, really good way for you to learn about a field, but if you don't know someone, that's a big ask. But if you make a connection from this conversation around what their career path is like, then it's much easier to ask from hey, would it ever be possible for me to come see what you're doing and shadow you for the day or get more exposure to the field? So this is a really good way to learn. Is this something I might like? What can I learn about it? Do I need a graduate degree for it? What should that degree be in? What are the challenges? What do you wish you would know? It's a really good way to kind of develop that additional knowledge. LinkedIn is one tool that you can use, and then the other tool that you can use is called VCU Link. The address for that is link.vcu.edu. This is going to be just for the VCU community. So whereas LinkedIn is going to be broad for anyone and they can say they're a VCU alumni, this is going to be a home for people who are part of the VCU community already, either a student, an alumni, or professors, or people who are just closely engaged with the community. But you can connect here and ask for opportunities in here. You can search by majors and things, which I think is nice. And once you find, actually we'll do industry here. Once you find someone here, this is a really intuitive tool and it kind of already gives you some language to build in. We'll pick a couple. So if you click the message button, it actually allows you to customize what you want to put in here, and you can pick a time to request a meeting and things like that. So this is also really valuable. And this tool is monitored on the back end by Alumni Relations at VCU too. So networking with VCU Link or LinkedIn are two really good ways to start these conversations and learn about someone's career path. And sometimes a side effect from these conversations is they might say, oh, send me your resume, I'd be happy to pass it along. Or, oh, I know someone's going to be leaving in 2 months. We don't have a position now, but we're going to in 2 months. And then you know to go back and check. Or send me, I'll let you know when this gets posted. So you can kind of learn about that. The other thing I would encourage you to do with LinkedIn is you can join professional associations related to the field that you're thinking about. That can be valuable. And then thinking about events. So we post our events in Handshake. When you're in Handshake, if you go to this top area, which is events, you can check out career fairs or other networking and employer information sessions that are being held. So this can be really valuable as well. And then if you're thinking about the field that you want to work in, thinking about the professional association with that field can be really valuable because oftentimes they will have a job board or things related to that. If you're thinking at all about the nonprofit industry, the Young Nonprofit Professional Network in Richmond is really active and can be a really good way to kind of make some connections in that field. And you'll start to learn what those associations might look like. If you don't know, your faculty members can also be good resources for figuring out what professional associations to think about joining. Oftentimes, the professional associations have cheaper student fees, so you might want to join while you're student science. It's free for students, so it's something to check out too. Any questions around that kind of networking, that connection piece, or conducting an informational interview? Or the job search, those job search tools I talked about? The last thing I want to touch on is just some resources so you have them going forward. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on them today, but you can follow up with additional questions for me or from anyone in our office as well. As you're applying to opportunities like internships or full-time jobs, you want to make sure that your documents are customized. So try to avoid those online templates for resumes and cover letters. We have resume guides. I'm going to show you the link to that in the next page. If your resume looks like this from Canva, please come see us. Please do some work with us. We want to avoid pictures and lots of color, things like that. And you really need to customize your resume and your cover letter for each opportunity because you want to think of that job description that they've posted as a problem statement and talk about how your skill set can solve their problem and make it look like it's really customized to them. We have a number of resume guides on our website. They are all Google Docs, so the nice thing is you can make a copy of it and work from that. So as I said, we don't encourage the online templates, but these can be a guide or a Google Doc that you can start with. The general guide I think is a really good starting place for most students. Down towards the bottom of this, we have a junior or senior example. And so this can be a good way to highlight your experience. If you're someone who's like, I was working part-time while I was in school doing serving work or retail work, and so I don't feel like I have a lot of relevant experience to my field, talking about your relevant coursework can be helpful to describe the classes that you've taken. If you have a lot of experience and the courses don't have to go on there, but I often hear from students that they feel like they don't have any experience or they were just doing these serving jobs, and I encourage you to think about what are those transferable skills, what are those customer service, those communication skills that you were developing that are going to be relevant to a lot of the opportunities that you're applying to. And you don't have to do this on your own. We can help with that, so please know that we can have conversations around how to craft these documents and things like that. But I want you to know these guides are out here because if you start with this, we can spend the time really delving into your experience as opposed to me showing you kind of how to format stuff. Either way works, but it'll be a little bit more productive conversation. So those are our resume guides. Anyone have thoughts on what the difference is between a resume and a CV? Yes.
Resumes should be like a page or two, but CVs should be comprehensive. I was about to say exhaustive, but I don't know if I go that far.
Where do you think you might use them differently? Like where would a CV be used? Any thoughts?
I've been under the impression that a CV might be something that you would want to bring to an interview, but a resume is something that you would submit in order to kind of get your name into.
Like an application?
Yes.
Yeah, so I think generally a resume is going to be a marketing tool where you're going to market your most relevant experience. Most opportunities that you all are applying to will ask for a resume. CVs or curriculum vitaes are going to be much, much longer. Generally, they're used in an academic setting. So professors use CVs, people who are going to PhD programs for graduate school. Sometimes really, really heavy research positions that are in industry will use a CV because you're more likely to have publications and conferences and trainings, and they're very, very long oftentimes. Like, Dr. Arnold, do you know how long your CV is? Like, do you have a guess at how long yours is?
I don't know.
It's probably over 5 pages or
I
like,
think so, yeah.
yeah, it's probably pretty long. So they can get really, really long. Your resume should be generally at the undergraduate level, it's 1 page, sometimes 2 pages if that second page is really relevant and warranted, but generally 1 page. We have CV guides. I don't spend a lot of time talking about it because most students are going to have a resume. Any questions on resumes and cover letters? Like I said, I'm not going to go a lot in depth on this, but I want you to know these resources are out here and then we can help with them. We have a cover letter guide if you need help writing a cover letter. Seems very similar. It's a Google Doc. We'll walk you through that. That has to be customized to the opportunity. If a cover letter is not required, it will hurt you if you submit something really, really general. You're better off not submitting anything than submitting something that's super, super general. It needs to be customized if you're going to write it. And then if you're thinking about graduate school, we have personal statement guides, and we can help you craft personal statements and review personal statements for graduate school as well. The last things I'm going to talk about are kind of just some opportunities within our office. We have some upcoming employer connection opportunities, mainly career fairs. So tomorrow is our Richmond, our RBA Internship and Experiential Opportunities Fair. At the end of March is our Social Impact Career and Internship Fair, and in April is our General Spring Career and Internship Fair. So social impact will be nonprofits and public service organizations. Spring one will be anyone who wants to come. And you can always check out who's coming, and I encourage you to do that. So if you go into Handshake under the events area, you can look at the career fair option. And let's find our social impact one. Right now, we have 20-some employers already registered, so you can see who's coming. So you can view these employers and do a little bit of research ahead of time, confirming like, who do I want to talk to, come up with your game plan, do a little research around that. And I would encourage you to do that. All of our fairs this spring are in person. We brought them back in person after having some virtual events for the last year. Attendance has been way up, and employers are really excited to engage with our students, so those opportunities are coming up. Oops. We never want professional clothing to be a barrier for students, so we have a professional clothing closet in our office. You get to take up to 4 pieces of gently used professional clothing for free, and it's yours to keep. You don't have to return that. If you're interested in checking out our clothing closet, you would make an appointment for that in Handshake. So while I'm talking about that, if you go to the Career Center area of Handshake, you can do appointments and schedule a new appointment. If you're not a business or engineering student, you will just see VC Career Services. If you happen to be double major, you'll see that other office, and you can select what you want to do. So like if you wanted to meet with me and talk about major and career advising, like I don't know what I want to do, you can pick this option to review resumes down here. And then we also have the Suit Yourself Closet option in here. Once you pick the topic, you're taken to the next page, and you can look for staff members too. So if you wanted to schedule specifically with me, you could pick my name from this list. If you happen to be interested in a different field, like let's say you're actually a pre-health student and you happen to be a political science major, you can choose a different option too. We are all generalists, so we can all help with a little bit of anything. So like if you're stuck and you're like, I need resume help tomorrow and Melinda's not available, you could see anyone. We don't have caseloads, but I'm going to be a little bit more knowledgeable in your fields. And then you can see like I have appointments as early as this Friday, the blue, where you can go to next week and I have more stuff. We do virtual appointments, in-person appointments. Virtual is through the Handshake app because we don't have to send Zoom links that way, or we do the in-person option. We are also doing headshots again, so if you want a professional headshot, you have to have that ready. We do them the first Friday of the month, and you can make that appointment in Handshake. And then lastly, if you are not graduating, we have the internship funding program, which starts this spring, or this summer. You have to be enrolled in the fall semester, so that's why I caveat it with that. If you happen to be doing a grad program at VCU, you'd still be eligible, but you have to be doing something at VCU in the fall. This is an opportunity to get financial support for unpaid or underpaid internships, or if you just need to maximize the way you're looking at your financial area with an internship. So we've had students who are like, I need to be able to quit my part-time job for the summer to do this internship. So I need this funding. You can submit an application for it. It's due by April 2nd. You have to document what you're doing, have that internship available, and submit a budget worksheet, things like that. But we really are trying to encourage students to get some of that experiential, hands-on opportunities, recognizing that it's not always financially feasible for our students. So this funding program helps provide some of that opportunity. So as I mentioned, we do appointments in person, virtually. We also have drop-ins that are Tuesday through Friday from 11 to 2. Drop-ins are great for resume help or cover letter help or just general job searching. They are led by our peer career advisors who are trained in helping on things like resumes and cover letters, but those can be really good. So I will end here. It's always helpful to get feedback on these sessions, so if you would like to scan this QR code, that will bring you to the feedback, and if you enter in number 136, it will pull it directly to this session, which is helpful. And there are sign-in sheets up here and here, so if you did not sign in when you arrived, if you could do that, that would be great, and I will try to send out the slides everyone tomorrow. What other questions do people have? Yes?
So you mentioned the headshots. When would those be useful? Because we
Great
can't use pictures in like a resume.
That's LinkedIn would be one place to put them. Handshake could be a place. And if you get like an opportunity, like sometimes like your first job, sometimes they're like, hey, send us something, we're going to introduce you to our new team, or like an internship might ask for that. I think the most value is probably LinkedIn and Handshake. Great question. The other thing I did not mention here is if anyone is thinking about the federal job search or federal resumes, those resumes are going to follow a different format than your standard resume, and I'm happy to have conversations around that with students because you have to be more detailed. That is going to be a longer resume, and big picture, I want you to all know that you need a separate version of your resume for anything federal. Yes?
For applying for jobs, what about like, I don't know, using like temp agencies or job agencies or something like that? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, they can be. They can be really valuable. It depends. I think you want to make sure that you're looking for any kind of job stamps. So no one should ever ask you to pay money up front, anything like that. You want to make sure that it's not like a sales commission only type of role. But I think staffing agencies and temp agencies can be valuable. I would just make sure you're also looking at kind of what the qualifications of them are. So like, what is that contract going to look like? How long would you be there? So being like a savvy buyer, but I think they can be helpful, especially if you're like, I'd like to get some administrative experience. Sometimes you can get like, when I was in college one summer, I worked, like the company was laying off their entire staff and I was like the personal assistant for someone because they no longer had like their normal executive assistant. So like they needed someone to like type up stuff. So like it was an older person who couldn't type very well, so that's what I did. So like it was good administrative experience for my resume, and so that was through a staffing temp firm. Yeah. Other questions? Yes?
Since I'm a first year, do you think there's like a best opportunity or time to start doing internships?
It's never too early. Yes, if you can do one, if you can do one as early as the summer between first year and sophomore year, then you have some experience, and that oftentimes allows you to get even a better internship or a different internship, or go back to the same organization and take on more responsibility. So it's never too early. If you have that opportunity to look now, it certainly cannot hurt. Some internships will put qualifications around the year that student must be, but I've seen students that find them for after first year or after sophomore year. And you can also, depending on your time and how much time you have to spend, sometimes you can do internships during the school year too. That's not something that's impossible. I think that sometimes it's just harder to do. But I mentioned summer, and I also want to make sure that you know that you can do it during the year too. Yes?
Is there any way to find jobs abroad, or should I like start working here first and then find something abroad?
VCU just purchased Going Global as a resource for looking through that. It's offered through the Global Education Office. That can be a resource to check out. I don't think we've linked to it from our website yet, but you could just Google VCU. It's Going without the G, I think, or Going Global, which will help you with some international opportunities. The one thing you have to do a lot of research on is visa support around that, because that can be a challenge depending on where you're going. So that's just something to be aware of and to do research on. If that is not an issue, then there's a lot more flexibility with it. But the Going Global platform should be helpful for that. Good question. Yeah. Anything else? Well, my email's on here. If you forget how to make an appointment, you're welcome to email me and I can send you the link to Handshake. Or if you just have a question, you're welcome to email me too. Please feel free to reach out and schedule those appointments too as you have questions, whatever's going to be the most helpful for you all. And thank you for your time today. I appreciate it. It's beautiful outside, so it's nice that you came to listen and stayed inside.
Thank you.
Thank you.